Welcome back, everybody. Third knockout game of the day. GaRpY versus toxjq, two legends. And I have another one joining me. Ketchup, how are you?
I'm doing well. You know, we're in the home stretch for this first day. Apologies in advance for... I've been wearing a jacket all day. It's quite hot in here, so I decided not to do that. But, you know, we'll just have to make do. You know, I've got this flashy T-shirt. What are you talking about? You know, this T-shirt cost me like £3. Anyway, you were saying... Good matchup, though. This is going to be a good match.
I was just saying, we dress down here. Don't even worry about it. This is the B stream. Nobody cares. No fluff here. We just like to hang out. I wish we were both just on a couch hanging out. But, Dan, it's going to be GaRpY versus toxjq. Sorry, misread the matchup. It's going to be Deep Embrace, Awoken Ruins. GaRpY's going to be rocking the Athena Ranger scale, and toxjq has Doom, Galena, and we will see Slash potentially if we go to a third map.
Which I think we like to see. And even then, Ruins looks to me like having the sort of Slash versus the Scale Bearer is always a matchup that I find quite interesting because it's two rather different dynamics, isn't it? But then we have to kind of talk about how, well, both of these players' journeys has developed to the point where now here we are, you know, talking about elimination territory. This is where things become extremely different because Tox has definitely had a little bit of a more successful time. And then on the opposite end of that, maybe not so much from the side of GaRpY. GaRpY didn't seem to have a huge amount of confidence going into today. And, you know, I think the first match that we saw of the day kind of really reflected that, perhaps. But GaRpY now, a bit of a loose cannon, you know? Who knows what's going to happen from here?
And his back's against the wall. The Bulldog will go down, apparently, within 5 seconds as toxjq takes the first frag. Wow.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of blinked to miss that one, to be honest, but so far, Tox's LG, this has only been... Oh my god.
My god.
We only just hit 20 seconds for it.
toxjq is like, I'm not going home. I'm not doing this day one thing. I'm here to play. Coming out the gate swinging. Just missing the rockets around the corner there. Also missing the jump. Now this is dangerous territory. Is toxjq going to try and push this? Does have the jump. Just wants to try and defend. Decent LG, all things considered, as GaRpY does snag away the heavy, but can he make it to the net?
Feels like there's a rather strict obstacle here for Tox being able to retreat, take that light just for good measure, and I think the reservations of GaRpY here really start to show. Tox being able to just back up and take that light and still be in a position where GaRpY was nowhere near the Mega. I feel like Tox's damage output, even in these opening 60 seconds, has been so extreme that GaRpY is having no choice but to put the, nth degree of respect on it. Lovely rails. Ooh, okay. Good rails.
Hanging in the pocket, delivering up some nice rails, as you said, putting his first frag on the board. Nice little hook to get that armor, light armor, from the upper area here. But Mega's going to be up, and he kind of mispositioned for it. Opportunity here to try and get some damage. Good fadeaway rail, but since it's pre-pickup, it doesn't really matter. Looking for another one post-pickup, and there you go. All
That's
as well.
The one that matters. That's the one you need. Just to nullify the usefulness of it all, but now Tox will be starting to play a very, very slow game. No real weapons to get the job done. Least of all from this distance, no rail in hand. And I mean, not even a tri-bolt heavy machine gun really is as good as it's going to get. GaRpY's doing a fantastic job of just kind of peppering things down to make life difficult. But actually, just like that, Tox has actually been able to run around the entire map here, using the fact that Mega's in play, kind of against GaRpY to put himself in position. Got himself back up to a nice, healthy stack as GaRpY feels like he's going to concede. Had an idea to go in, but oh my god! There's those world-famous GaRpY rockets right there.
Oh, and the rail and Tox hanging by a thread. GaRpY serving up those delicious TKs. And this has to be a frag. Okay, toxjq flying by with a rail of his own, 93 HP. GaRpY down to 3. Another rail from Tox, fighting back.
This is way too much of a scary Mega. And even then, GaRpY could not be any closer to death. 1 HP and no armor. How do you get closer to death than this?
I don't know, but I thought that rail was going to send Tox flying off the map, so very lucky, and GaRpY's fortunate to survive. That health bubble will give his position away. toxjq has to know he's low. Maintains high ground, though. Very patient play from Tox.
And what's the rush? What is the rush, 40, I guess, is the question that Tox asks himself. All I have to do is find him at some point. I'll eventually catch him, get enough damage, and, you know, jobs are good and right there, 4-1. It's Tox looking to extend this lead. I think a man on a mission had an extremely rough time against Rapper. This was kind of like the expected result, really, especially on that first map. Rapper just made it look like another day in the office. I know we're talking about previous champions and all that, but Tox being sent to lower bracket in such a fashion, not going to be happy about that. We're going to want to make a statement, remind people who we are.
Absolutely agree. He's like, yeah, I've been out the game a little bit, but I can still play. Proving it right now against GaRpY, up 4-1, 4 minutes in. Nice little pickup on the Mega, almost connects with a fantastic sidestep rail here. Trying to get under and lift GaRpY to the heavens, but not quick enough, unfortunately.
Can't catch me now.
Big rocket from down below, though. Got them dunks, almost hits another one, and GaRpY has to be careful.
I wasn't even looking at that through GaRpY's point of view, but I think his defensive rockets were occasionally hitting the floor there. He was doing so much self-damage that now it's actually made life quite difficult as we move towards this Mega. Is GaRpY going to make that play? Tox looking for some opening tri-bolt damage, knowing that there's a good chance GaRpY was going to take that pathway towards, but even then, Tox keeping this high ground advantage. Knows that GaRpY's not going to... Wow. I mean, look, GaRpY is being a bit nervous to push in for these mega items or these major items, and I think Tox has caught sight of it. But even now, when an item is in play, Tox is just ignoring it because he knows that GaRpY is not going to go there.
And Tox infamous with the rail click. He flicked, didn't have ammo, very upsetting, but he's still sitting pretty. Free frag lead, has the stack advantage, but in my heart I wanted to see that shot connect just to be like, yep, that's Tox. Does re-up on rails, has more slugs to work with, lobbing some tribal to try and clear out the heavy area. Ooh, a rocket in his pocket from GaRpY, but he's already out of it.
Rail duel, no one home on either side. Good news for Tox is now Heavy's going to be a completely free pickup. So GaRpY, ooh, a little bit of damage as we jump down towards here. GaRpY having a much superior LG in this encounter. A last-ditch effort of a rocket, but not enough to make GaRpY sweat. And, oh, see you later! You're trying to escape, mate? You're trying to come back? No, thank you.
Pushing through the choke point, and GaRpY just says, you know what? I don't even want to deal with it. I can't. 50 HP. This Tox denying everything off the map now. With limited arsenal of weaponry. He's literally got machine gun and a little bit more LG, and that is it. Swapping the shotgun, trying to make something happen from a distance. Re-ups on LG, and again, stealing these light armors away. And just being super mobile. Doomslayer kind of fallen out of favor. I mean, the greased up Doom guy doesn't really do much anymore. You can kind of get around the map a lot faster, usually off the initial spawn when you spawn into the game. But other than that, I mean, the punches are kind of worthless. There's the rail. GaRpY drops down to try and get some HP back, but Tox just firmly at advantage here, especially after that mega pickup catch up.
The question is, can he keep this going? GaRpY has had some real miracle moments so far where it just looked like he was at death's door, really. And there were a couple of instances straight away where, out of nowhere, GaRpY just comes alive, and that's where the raw skill will come to play. You can be down anything, and then a couple of good rockets, one good rail, and that's it. You're good to go, and just like that, Tox only one frag in the lead. There's less than 3 minutes of the clock, but oh dear. Springing a trap like that, and Tox being oh so careful not to give his position away, rewarded with another frag.
Play there from Tox to go up 2. And of course we never have any bias on the desk, but I mean this is your countryman, so you have to have your heart in it a little bit. Can he steal away the heavy at the very least? And GaRpY hanging by a thread. Steals the heavy still by a sliver of HP. Grabs 225s and somehow stays alive after that as an onslaught from Tox.
A Christmas miracle that GaRpY lived to tell the tale. And of course I jinx it almost immediately because Tox catches him up top and then manages to take himself the Mega. But you know, there is always a little bit of bias there with GaRpY because I love watching him play, but we got to remember Tox is one of my favourite players to watch, so this was a very bittersweet series for me to cast because either way, one of my favourites is going home. But, you know, reaching this point was no easy feat, and regardless of the result, I think both players will be happy to at least have made it this far. You know, Tox, we're talking as if it's the end of the series. It's not. You know, this is just map 1. We have Awoken after this. But Tox is looking incredibly good. You know, even if it comes down to the fact that there hasn't been a huge amount of control on either side or whatever it is, Tox has just been getting so much amazing damage from range that GaRpY's just been consistently caught slipping. And an element of Deep Embrace, I suppose. I know it's very rail heavy, but as we go into Awoken, you kind of hope that, for GaRpY's sake, this doesn't continue.
Yeah, and looking at Awoken, GaRpY's going to be a Ranger Tox. So maybe some dire orb plays coming out from GaRpY that could potentially turn the tide and maybe take us to a map number 3, but right now 5 frags down, just cannot find the damage he needs, always backed into a corner, dealing with the stack of a light champion. It's just a nightmare right now on map number 1 for GaRpY.
GaRpY's going to have to spend this minute kind of sitting there and keeping in mind that we have another map to get through at the very least. Yeah, best case scenario is going to be that Awoken goes in the favor of GaRpY, Ruins is that final decider, but with how this first map went, I don't know if I'm particularly confident that we're actually going to reach map 3. If Tox is able to keep that accuracy in check, nice, and he's able to push forward and keep things rolling, Awoken could very well go back into the favor of Tox.
Could be the last map for GaRpY in this tournament life. And what a tease, too, because, again, map number 3 would have been Slash for Tox, and that is just always a pleasure to watch.
With these closing 10 seconds, there's not much left to really say about it. It was kind of like your standard map of Deep Embrace, has to be said. Looking at the items, though, especially by the end of things, there was a distinct difference in who controlled which. As you know, GaRpY, looking at a lot of that map through Tox's point of view, it kind of looked like GaRpY was in position quite regularly for at least being able to take that heavy. He actually wasn't. He only picked up a small handful, and it was Tox that was able to hold the vast majority of them. So, dominant map 1, has to be said. As we go into map 2 now, what would GaRpY do to turn things around? I mean, a little bit more careful, or maybe in an elements, I think in the Deep Embrace, sometimes too careful. If we kind of rewind and look back at the opening couple of minutes, yeah, Tox had a phenomenal start, but I think he was controlling the top of the map, and from that point, GaRpY was just afraid to go for Mega, even though he had a lot of opportunities to at least try and fight for it. He wasn't even thinking about it. Like, so much fear had been put into him early that GaRpY wasn't really asserting himself at all.
I completely agree. Tox kind of came out the gate swinging, controlling the high ground and saying, I know you have Athena, you have the verticality, but test me. I dare you. LG, Rockets, Rail, whatever you want, I'll serve it up hot and fresh. And that's exactly what happened, unfortunately, for GaRpY. And now he's tournament life comes down to Awoken with Ranger in hand. So we'll see if he can make the Dire Orb work for him, maybe hit some of those famous GaRpY rockets and send us to map number 3. But it's just crazy to sit here in 2022 and say that GaRpY's facing Tox. First of all, that's crazy, and also lower bracket day 1. It's just I'm a roller coaster of emotion right now, Ketchup.
For me, it's definitely a sign of how times have changed. The game has progressed to a point where aim will no longer carry you through. We would look at the days where both Tox and GaRpY, and I mean no disrespect to either of them. Like I said earlier, they're 2 of my favorite players. But just looking at the 2 of them historically and some of their best results in Quake Champions was where combat really kind of reigned supreme above all. I'm not even talking the days of round-based duel. I'm just saying that there was a time in the first year, maybe the first couple of years, where those that were able to just consistently fight when necessary, there was an element of them being able to just keep themselves afloat, even later on in the bracket. They'd pull out these kind of cheeky frags, and that was kind of it. But now we're years in, and time limit duel is here to stay, which is kind of weird saying that, seeing as, you know, it's Quake. But, you know, it wasn't this way from the beginning. It's all about the brain now. It's all about the smart play. It's being able to hit that next level, being one step ahead all the time. And now we've sort of increased to that level of play. I think a lot of the players that are known for just being amazingly good at fights, they're starting to fall off a little bit. And all it really shows is, you know, there's more training to be done, more personal development almost. And GaRpY and Tox, they are 2 players that may have not been recently as active in Quake Champions. They were able to qualify and make it to this tournament, but I think it's really no mystery that neither of them have been able to grind as hard as some of the rest of the competition. It's partly why we're here now, day 1 on B-Stream, talking about one of them on the verge of elimination.
It hurts. I personally just think that we should bring back the 8,000 damage Dire Orb, but that's neither here nor there, Ketchup. We could talk about game dev tips later. I'll
You mean
email
Clutch
Sync
with
and
the
we'll
wall,
try and make
the
it happen,
actual
Jen.
wall that was fully invincible, yeah? That you could somehow sometimes
it was
shoot
great.
through. What about even earlier from that, when Clutch didn't have the air dodge, but had the passive where if you stood perfectly still, you took less damage? Do you remember that? Do we remember that one? Because I remember that one.
I remember where the items on Ruins were switched, and Rail and Heavy were actually switched up. So Mega, you just drop down and you get Heavy. You don't even have to go into the dungeon. Like, and the secret rocket launcher on Ruins,
Oh,
where
that
Mega
ledge at the
is, if you
top.
look
That
up.
ledge above Mega. I
The
remember that.
children don't know, Ryan. The children don't know. Okay,
Times
we
were
know.
different back then, man. Times were very, very different. It was a different time.
Time flies. It's actually disgusting how 5 years have passed. But anyways, it's disgusting how we are on map number 2, which could be GaRpY's last map of the tournament. He's on Ranger, we're on Awoken, and he's living on a prayer.
Now, looking at things through Tox's point of view, I know the stream is going to be looking at it through GaRpY's, but the battle of the two mediums, GaRpY. A little bit more potentially explosive here with the orb, as we've seen all day long. But Tox, I think, just keeping things a little bit safer, perhaps. All about having that Galena. We've seen Galena be somewhat of a comfort pick for him earlier today.
Said he wins the race, potentially. It's Toxic down below. I've seen so many players get floated, peeking too far over that ledge. GaRpY, please. Luckily for him, just takes a little bit of tickle, but can back away. The stack's all about even, but GaRpY still does have that Dire Orb in hand, and I really think that that's going to be the difference maker here. Whether it's damage or repositioning, GaRpY has to utilize that Dire Orb well.
Now will be Tox in a better position for now. Enough of a difference between these two items that Tox can both take the Mega and then start to make a play towards this Heavy. The question is, who's going to be able to jump in first? Again, GaRpY. GaRpY, normally in that situation, I think, would be sitting at the bottom. Oh, there's the orb, though, looking for the magic moment, and it will be there. I was going to say, GaRpY's clearly putting lots of respect, even on these items again. Similar to that first map, but this time, with an orb in the pocket, best moment to go for it.
Real nice play with the Dire Orb to finish there, taking the one frag lead. Unfortunately, can't get any damage post Mega pickup, so Toxic pretty stacked here. Ooh, nice rail from down below, almost hits a second as well. And with that Galena and with the totem economy, you're probably going to see Tox maybe build that up once he gets the overstack and play more towards the heavy side of the map. It all depends on whether GaRpY allows it. Great rail from around the corner there, a little peek into the rail. Nice shoulder check, if you will. Picks up the light armor, and again, has Dire Orb in hand, but no rocket, so he has to kind of delay just enough to give up Toxic that free Mega.
I feel like we're entering this location again here, 40. Once again, Heavy's going to spawn. And once again, a fight's breaking out with GaRpY sort of being there, lying in wait, and as Tox pushes in to try and cement the item for himself, GaRpY getting so much damage, and able to retreat, pick up those totems as you run past, and that's just going to be so good to bring yourself back up to nice and healthy. If there were to be a fight here, it would have been pretty much straight even, with the exception of the orb, and that's something that Tox is going to have to keep in mind. I don't want to be too close. The second I get close, that orb is going to ruin my life.
It is going to hurt for sure as we are rounding the 3-minute mark. GaRpY still with the one frag. Playing nice and cautious, missing with the rail. He wants another one. Hits with the second as Tox actually swaps to LG just to push him away and make sure he grabs the heavy, but swaps back to rail. GaRpY's making his way over to the T-Con. A little bit of rocket damage as well as the light armor's picked up, and GaRpY in an odd position here. Does he make the dash for Mega? The rail opportunity's there, and he's going to orb for safety catch up. That is how much respect he puts on Tox's rail.
Yeah, you certainly wouldn't go for an orb like that versus any old opponent, would you? That's, I'm fighting one of the aim gods, and needs must under these circumstances. However, it was a good play. The orb wasn't really needed for any of the other situations, but what was important was taking that item away. And in doing so, GaRpY's put himself in position for a heavy, that he was able to pick up as well. So, yeah, a small lead, 1-0. That's barely anything, but enough for GaRpY to be constantly dictating the pace of this match. Tox now up in the center point. One of the first times he's actually been able to sit on this part of the map. GaRpY has spent most of the game controlling this high ground location. This is where the Glade is going to be a little bit more difficult, because yes, Tox is going to be able to constantly sustain himself, but nothing in particular that's going to be able to get him back into the fight immediately.
Totally agree. GaRpY very cautious, seeing that rocket, and here you can tell ruins here. Big damage coming out from that LG as well, and just trying to line up this rail. Decides to let it go. We can deny another light armor. Tox. No armor to his name, but totem in hand shortly. 3 seconds away. GaRpY looking better and better here. But still, only up by 1 as we're getting dangerously close to half.
If GaRpY's going to have an opportunity to steal away a light, he'll do it. You're fighting off against a Galena who is very clearly playing passively and careful. And in this case, by the way, lots of damage right there. Tox is going to want to go for light more than anything else, because if you get those overstacked totems, you don't really need a Mega as much. The armor becomes so much more important, and because of that, GaRpY is shutting down that all-important resource. Now, that was a delicious little rail to stop Tox from being able to push in and really do what he wants. But as you can see up there on the Observer, Mega hasn't spawned, but Tox got essentially the health equivalent. That means it's overstack time, and this is where Tox, only being 1 frag down, is going to have the resources to push in and make something happen. Even at this point, Tox might be a little bit aggressive here, because even if you take this damage, you'll just run back, take that Mega. You're the one in position for it. This is the opportunity for you.
Yeah, GaRpY had to respect it and just let all of that happen, giving up both majors and just trying to stay alive here. 100 HP and finally picks up the light armor to get a little bit under his belt, but still hugging the ropes right now as Tox looking to even it out at 1.
Some defensive blasts coming out there from Tox. We want to take these items, but we really, really want to get them as clean as possible, because GaRpY has very much played, I've got to say, a defensive game of like I have often never seen from him. Now he's forced to retreat. Do we have to use the orb to survive? Looks like not quite, but the decision might not be his to make for much longer as Tox pushes forward. There's a cheeky rail. Tox was ready for the angle. You've got to be kidding me.
Absolutely insane. 5 HP. It's also insane how GaRpY has just been staying alive like this.
Whoa! Here comes a big push here from Tox. It has taken a hot minute for Tox to actually find an opportunity like this, but we're now just about to have 7 minutes on the clock. Not a lot of the map left to go, but if Tox can cement a lead now, this is going to be a bit of a nightmare scenario for GaRpY, because that is going to spell aggression, momentum, and pressure. GaRpY, huge amount of unreturned damage there. Tox forced to jump down and take that light armor. Unfortunately, though, GaRpY taking plenty of damage in the process, fresh off the back of a heavy too, and by pushing forward towards Rocket, that is oh so much damage to deal with less than 3 minutes here on the clock. If Tox can find GaRpY now, it could spell disaster.
And GaRpY just in a bad way. He's railable. The score.
Oh no!
And there it is! Ties it at 1. And just taking a peek at the scoreboard, I thought it was broken because there's no nail gun, shotgun, or machine gun like percentages for either player. There's a little bit of machine gun for Tox actually, but other than that, they have just been using the unholy trinity with a little bit of trouble to catch up.
Enough of these games. Just over 2 minutes left to go, but Tox, that was the moment to make something happen. GaRpY, no rail in hand, and for the time being, that could be quite alarming. That opening damage is just, it's not going to get returned. This rail fight, GaRpY can do nothing to challenge it, and in doing so, had to prioritize retreating, picking up a rail to fight back, but once more, doing that meant that he wasn't able to challenge the heavy. A heavy that Tox uses to push forward and take a lead. Now the defensive orb did do a ton of damage. Tox in position for this Mega. It looks like he's going to be able to just pick it up. No! Dies right before! And GaRpY takes the lead again.
Rocket as well. Opportunity for another one, but Tox lands more damage and both players extremely weak. Pretty much even here. But the heavy looks like it's going to Tox's GaRpY. He uses the resources in the banana and LG room to try and get back to a decent stack. Minute 30 on the board, tied at 2. GaRpY fighting for his tournament life here.
I mean, not even 2 minutes away from the threat of elimination. There's a stressful circumstance, and there's whatever GaRpY's currently having to deal with. So if you keep his head in the game, keep composed. Let's not forget, over 25 years of competitive arena FPS experience for GaRpY here. This is not the first time he's been in this situation, and no doubt it will not be the last either.
Oh no, it's a bad rail to take. Does have a little bit of resources to work with, but Tox casually makes his way over the heavy, knowing that he's done the deed.
for another time though. 40 Tox is the one that's in position. And that's been a constant issue here for GaRpY, who has been playing defensively on the back foot the entire time, even when there was a frag advantage. Just trying to keep life difficult for Tox. It took that one time. He scouted him out with a rail. Equalizes and has a chance to push forward again. That now Tox is, without question, the one in control. An aggressive push towards this middle. Once more, Mega just about to spawn. Heavy up. And, oh dear. Tox, the Heavy's in play. Oh, no! That's it!
Because it wasn't
Oh,
worth it!
no! Why? Why? Oh, why? 40, did he do that?
I have no idea. Potentially thinking that maybe Tox was waiting near Heavy rather than being, so close to the power-up rail area to make the jump across and fight at the Mega. But that's it. That Dire Orb sealed his fate. And GaRpY makes his exit day one. Tox moves on in the lower bracket in 2-0 fashion, and that one's a heartbreaker.
It is. I mean, like, once again, it's so easy for us with hindsight to see what happened to go, why? Because that's my immediate reaction, but I guess he must have thought Tox was going to be somewhere else. Tried to safely get in and take the Mega before Tox had the opportunity to, but then right as he appears there, Tox comes running round the corner, and now you've got no escape. What do you do from that situation? Tox has just picked up the Heavy, and now you're stuck without an escape option, and he's right in front of you. You're done. Like,
it all hurts.
Tox had to
hurts.
massively mess that up. He had to make a huge mistake to lose that, and was able to obviously capitalize 40. That does unfortunately mean that GaRpY is no longer in the World Championship for this year. Being able to make it this far, an accomplishment in its own right. But I think Tox is going to feel quite relieved to have pushed forward in this one, because I feel like there's plenty of fight left in that guy.
Lives to fight another day, but we're done for now. We got one more knockout game, so stay tuned. We'll be back after a break.